All right. Let's get to our final discussion, and that we boy. Let me tell you something,
Yeah,
boy. Let me tell you something, boy. We gonna talk about some One
lay it,
Piece. We gonna talk about some One Piece, and more
lay it,
specifically, we gonna talk about some goddamn hockey.
lay it on me. You sound so ready for this.
Cause it's been on my mind for the longest time, and that's just the nature of how hockey has just been advancing in this series. Like, okay, don't get me wrong, hockey is not the best power system out there. Let's be real and be reasonable. It is not the best, it's not the most technical, and honestly, well, actually, let me ask you, what are your feelings towards hockey in terms of how it kind of has started to, it's ever since it was introduced, has kind of overridden the technical aspect of devil fruit?
Um, I don't know. It's really hard to put because see, the thing is, Odo's basically piggybacking it off everything now. He made it something that anybody could realistically attain, and just said that. Well, yeah, based on that alone, anybody could. So he decides who gets it, and he. I'm noticing he pairs up a lot of Devil Fruit users with hockey, like especially powerful ones. So as for it overriding the whole Devil Fruit thing, I mean, it is. He does make it a point to establish it's the one thing that can nullify most Devil Fruit powers.
Mm,
At the very least, like you can hit a Logia with hockey.
right.
I mean, it's just another ability that he likes to piggyback on, and he does sort of build it up to be like the strongest thing possible. I mean, when he first introduced Conqueror's hockey, he didn't explain anything to anybody. He just had Shanks give the Sea King the meanest look it had probably ever seen in its life, and that thing just got scared and swam away. And we got no explanation for what that was. We literally had no idea. It's just like, how did he do that? Why was Shanks so scary to this monster that it swam away? And then what? Almost 500 chapters later, we finally get an explanation. It was a thing he did sort of plant in kind of early on, but I get the feeling he decided not to think, like, not to bring it in too much.
Not to flesh it out, I
Excuse
guess.
me. Yes, that's it. Until I'm so sorry, my throat is just not having it today. Until he got to a point where he could introduce it narratively.
Mm,
Once he was finally able to start introducing narrative in like mysterious ways at first, because you know, with Rayleigh, when Rayleigh was first using hockey, you weren't really seeing what he was doing exactly. You had no clue, but somehow he was able to take on Kizaru of people, and he was able to take off Kami's self-destruct necklace without it killing her. And all this time, I'm just wondering, how did he do that? How did he do that? At this point, we've kind of seen how Luffy reached that exact point. I
yeah.
feel like it's always like foreshadowing, like, hey, this is what like the what's the word I'm looking for? hardest and sturdiest of pirates of men can fucking have.
Well,
Because like they established that like it's a thing you achieve when you go through like a grueling amount of training for all of your specific senses for the particular colors of hockey. I kind of went off on a tangent here. Yeah, what are your thoughts?
well, when it comes to hockey, it's had an upside and it's had a downside. The downside has generally been that it's been fairly obvious that this was not originally what Oda had planned. For Oda, it feels like sometime after the events of Enel's Lobby and as he was getting through Thriller Bark and all that good stuff, he had the idea for Haki more or less solidified in his mind. Like he figured out what he wanted the rules for it to be. Because, let's be real, you start to see Haki kind of applied to Luffy the moment he runs into Duval with his bison and all that. You see him, first show the signs of Conqueror's Haki and all that good stuff. You start to see, that's after which you get to Sabaody and you're introduced to the likes of Sentomaru and Rayleigh and this, that, and the other. And it's just like you're shown the capabilities of what Haki can do, especially to people who you would think before are otherwise untouchable. But if they were truly untouchable, it'd be like, well, how do you deal with them? There had to be a workaround for the likes of Ace, Smoker, Kizaru, all of these people. Hell, Kuzan and all that. There had to be some kind of way to get around that. And Haki, is basically Oda's get out of jail free card. It's his one-stop shop for making it so that he doesn't have to think too hard on how to get around the likes of Crocodile. But ultimately, at the same time, you lose that element of figuring things out. That was the big thing in Alabaster. It's just like, oh, how do we get around someone who can just turn into sand? Oh, splash him with water. Genius. Okay, that makes sense. Water solidifies sand. Makes it harder to get it to separate itself. It coagulates it, basically. It makes sense. But how do you get around fire? Water? How do you get around ice? Fire? How do you get around magma? How do you get around someone who can turn into fucking light? Those are the things that just bring up too many questions. So it's obvious that Oda painted himself into a little bit of a corner with a lot of these things, and he had to figure out something that kind of got him around damn near everything. But at the same time, it creates plot points like, well, if Crocodile's such a big and bad warrior, and with his abilities and all that, how the fuck does he not have Haki? That feels like a weird kind of situation. So,
I mean, one could argue that Crocodile does heavily depend on his powers because they are, for all intents and purposes, like a one-hit KO.
You're not wrong about that.
So, I mean, I could see Crocodile becoming complete. He doesn't strike me as the type to work that hard in a physical sense. When you first most of the time we see Crocodile, he is kind of just lounging.
This is
lounging, having a smoke. That man is chilling. He is a crime boss who doesn't lift a finger. I don't believe he would have Haki. I mean, he definitely should, by all accounts, but no, I don't see him having it.
And the other counter to that is like, well, we don't. Gecko Moria doesn't have Haki, and he's one of the warlords, and he probably got as far as Crocodile did before he got cut down to size. So there's arguments to be made, yes. Plenty of those. It's just that when you also think of CP9, it's just like, we know they have Haki now. Well, at least we know Rob Lucci does. But the question is, why did it seem like he had it before? Now, there's ways around that, like you said. There's easy ways to explain away that kind of stuff. It's just like maybe all their techniques were them getting on the cusp of having Haki. Maybe they had to go up the harsh path up through training. But, as we know, Haki blooms in adversity. They had never been in an adverse situation where they had to be in a situation where their Haki would have awakened. Like, there's ways around all of this, but at the same time, you also kind of have to acknowledge that Oda definitely didn't have this all planned out from jump. Luckily, he made things ambiguous enough in a lot of situations that he could work around it, but I don't see him completely having this Haki situation thought out until damn near halfway through the series. Well, at least at this point. And to introduce a whole new power system, 600, well, make it prominent, I should say, 600 chapters into a story, that raises some questions. But that's enough bagging on Haki, at least for now. I
will.
Go ahead.
I will concede that because you are right. He was, kind of painting himself in the corner with Logie. Wow, these guys are really untouchable. I don't know what I can do to counter all this. So yeah, I'll concede that because it is true. But I mean, like, this is where we get to the meat of it. It's just like I do like where he's taking it and all the subtle ways, subtle callbacks, if you will, that kind of imply it, I should say.
Yes. See, and that's where we get to the positives of Haki. All the callbacks, all the situations where it's just like, you could say Oda pretty much looked upon his own work and saw threads he can connect where there originally wouldn't have been any threads. Hell, when it comes to each form of Haki, they're introduced fairly early, with the most common type of Haki being the one he introduced probably the latest, with it first being introduced with, well, Garp. His Fist of Love, the whole thing where for some reason he was always able to hurt Luffy despite the fact that he was made of rubber. And we were always told, oh, that's because he loves his grandson so much, and only a Fist of Love can actually hurt his grandson that way. Only for it to be later incorporated, it was Haki. That's why. And then you see it on full display. So I'm going off of the One Piece wiki with this explanation, and I love the various ways that they've compiled it, because there's tiers to each form of Haki, and I just kind of wanted to just gush over them, basically, if you'll allow me that courtesy, sir.
Oh my, by all means, do.
So,
I want to hear you guys.
So, when it comes to Armament Hockey, I I love this introduction. It's true introduction where we see Rayleigh just completely side swipe Kizaru and just be like, nah, get that shit the fuck out of here. And I remember that moment thinking, what the fuck did he just do? How is he doing this? Kizaru has been untouchable up into this moment. That makes no sense. I couldn't fathom it at the time. But at the same time, I'm just like, I was intrigued. Is this something that Luffy can do? Because, like you said before, Rayleigh strolls into the entire series, pulling off some shit that just you bring so many questions to, like with Kami's bomb necklace thing. Just boop, throws it, explodes. Like, what? How? When? Where? How? What did you do? Explain.
Yeah, like everything he does was just like a constant. How did he do that? You remember the fucking SpongeBob episode? How does he do?
Yeah, and it's such a weird situation because it starts to become revealed, especially when Luffy unleashes his Conqueror's Haki in the auction house and all of that. But it's never made clear exactly what's going on to the full extent. And, there was also the encounter with Sentomaru, where he's just batting Luffy around like it's nothing. The encounter with, the Kujas, namely Boa Marigold and Boa Sandersonia, where they're handing Luffy his ass left and right, and it's just like, how the fuck are you doing this? And it's just like, oh, it's just Haki, baby! And the most common form of Haki, because it's the one where you're not coating yourself from the outside. Now, this is the most basic form of Haki, the basic of the basic, to just be like, nah, my will says, nah, you ain't on this shit. And it doesn't nullify the power, it just allows you to defend against it. Like, hell, that epic moment where Shanks blocks Akainu's lava just with his sword, and it's just like, that should not be possible. Nah, baby, with Haki, anything and everything is possible. And then, you get to the part of Haki that is way, way too common, and that's the hardening. You coat your body with this black, like, armor to increase your defensive capabilities. But it's always kind of portrayed like, bringing it around your entire body, not the way to go. Because let's be real, everybody who just coats their entire body with that shit ends up losing pretty badly. Pika? God, what was the dude who always got shit stuck to his face? Virgo. There we go, Virgo. They coated themselves entirely in Haki, took on some dude with a sword, got they asses cut. That's how that shit went down. You do not distribute your Haki evenly and where you need it. Do not use that as a cover-all. Or, even better, yes, imbue something with your Haki. That's the next level. To empower something with your Haki. Zoro and the various samurai of Wano putting their Haki into a weapon to strengthen it. Or even Katakuri sending the Haki into his mochi fist that float in the air for some reason. And it's just like, I'm just coating my mochi. That's all I'm doing. And he creates devastating weapons, with greater concentration, pinpointing where you want the Haki to go, and it strengthens it even greater, because putting it around your entire body is stupid. Put it where you know it'll do the most good. Imbue that shit into something. And you get to the more advanced techniques. And one of the very first techniques of Haki we saw, emission. You send out a wave of Haki. That's what Sentomaru could do. He could send out a blast of Haki, pushing Luffy back. And it's just like, dude, that makes so much sense. You go from holding it within you to coating it over your body to putting it into something that's sending it out to just using that as a force. Boom! You do a thrust. Hell, we saw Rayleigh do it to that elephant down. What was the island that Luffy trained on again?
Don't remember.
Yeah, that island.
I really don't remember.
Island with all the monsters and shit on it. But we saw Rayleigh do it there. And then you get to the last step of that form of Haki. The Haki that Luffy learned from Hyogoro. The internal destruction technique. You don't just send out that wave. You send it into something to destroy it damn near from the inside out. I love the progression of this because there's a way you can track the development of this. It makes sense from point A to point B. It makes sense that other people are better at doing one thing rather than the other. Like it makes sense. It's not overly complicated. If you follow it from point A to point B, you can tell where certain people are in terms of progression. It's a fascinating situation, and Armament Hockey, definitely a visual feast for the eyes.
My whole thing about Armament Hockey is that is it always just that like some people can harden their armor better than others?
It's
because I felt like that was an issue when Luffy was fighting Katakuri. Like every time his fists made contact with Katakuri's, he always had to like reel back, like, that shit hurt, you know? So, is there like a strength behind how much armament you put on yourself? Like, can you enhance that strength? That's one question I would have.
Honestly, it seems like it's just something that you're able to train up. Because, hell, even with the Kujas, we saw that they imbued Haki into their arrows for stuff like that. It all comes down to how dominant your will actually is. And yes, you can apparently train it up because that's what Luffy did. But, as you said, with the whole clashing between Luffy and Katakuri, it all kind of depends on the strength of your will and just how far along you've become. Now, it's not the most accurate thing that I can explain. There's still holes in my forms of logic. I understand that fully. But, it's always kind of seemed like, the reason why Katakuri was so readily able to dominate over Luffy is simply because of the fact that he had more time to be accustomed to his Haki than Luffy did. Luffy's had 2 years of training, and yes, he has grown considerably over those 2 years. At the same time, it's just like Katakuri, it was made out to be someone who's just had it longer and has more experience with it, if nothing else.
Fair enough. I mean, that is more or less how he got his Haki to his observation Haki to the point where it was. You want to start getting into that, or do you have any more to say on armament?
Not armament, but I do want to go to the form of Haki that was the second most common, I guess you could say. I feel like I want to leave. Actually, no. Let's go into observation. That is the second most common form of Haki. So yeah, I think that's it for armament.
Okay.
But what's your piece and feelings towards observation hockey?
I like it. I often feel like I don't see it being used enough. I would love to see like the depths of what observation hockey does. I mean, it's clearly like a spider sense kind of thing, and I really enjoy that. Like I say, spider sense because it's like the best way to describe it. You know, that old Tobey Maguire Spider Man. Um, but I like the moments when it's used. It always feels so. What's the best way to put it? It just feels like, oh, okay, there he is. You know, like it's a very simple kind of like sensory, which I guess is supposed to be the point. It's just I don't know. I'd like to see more utility out of it. And when it got to the point where like you can actually like, see a bit into the future, it's just like, oh, suddenly this got way more. You can do what now? I even love that in the most recent chapter, Luffy points out, damn, I saw, well, in one of the most recent chapters, Luffy points out, damn, I saw that hit coming and I still couldn't avoid it. That shit was too fast. So it's just like, yeah, you know, he was looking into the future, see the hit coming, but he still couldn't dodge because Kaido is just like two beasts.
King of beasts, get it right, motherfucker.
Yeah, the King of Beasts is about to get beat by the King of the Pirates, so whatever.
It's what happens when two kings clash. One of them has to fall.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I like to. I like the future vision that observation hockey has been upgraded to. We'll call it an upgrade because I mean, for the most part, that's kind of what it was presented as when it was back when it was a mantra.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like you know, call it whatever you want, but it was, all intents and purposes, just kind of like a really good soul read. I want to call it.
I mean, yeah, that's about right, honestly. But with when it comes to observation hockey, you know, well, at least from the wiki, it seems like there's also a form of progression here as well. You know, the basic of the basic, you can sense someone's presence. You can generally tell, hey, person over there. Oh, there's a person over there. Oh, there's a lot of people over there. You can generally sense things, but can't quite make it out too clearly. Like, you might not know exactly who is who and what is what, stuff like that. I do really enjoy the fact that, you know, Usopp eventually kind of developed it, at least to enough to a degree to be able to tell kind of who is who from distances and stuff like that. Like, it makes sense when you think about it. Being able to, like, damn near have Sword of Omen sight beyond sight. And you get to a point where it's just like,
sniper.
yeah. And
For a sniper, it makes sense.
yes, definitely. And you get to that point where it's just like, what's the next level beyond just being able to see things from a ridiculous distance away? Being able to sense that kind of shit makes a lot of sense. You know, and certain people have radiuses on how far something needs to be away before they can sense it. How we saw that with Mantra. With the priests, they could only sense so far away. With Eneru, well, boosted by his lightning and electricity and all that, which, you know, we were told as much. He can sense things over the course of an entire island. Like that's some advanced shit right there. And but then you get to the next level of that, and it's being able to sense people's emotions. That's something that the likes of Otahime could sense. She could sense people suffering. Isa, we saw that especially with Isa, who could sense when Wiper was, being aggressive and doing certain things. We've seen that. That's how Fujitora is able to sense a lot of what's going on around him. But it's not perfect, because even though you might be able to sense the intentions, the emotions of a person, you can still be tricked, like we saw with Pudding on Whole Cake Island. She was easily able to dupe the likes of Luffy and all that, but that's the thing. With someone trained enough in deception, there's ways around it still, but it also helps to have very differing degrees. But then you get to the next level, which is sensing intent. Does someone intend to do you harm? Does someone intend to, attack you? Where is that attack going? Where are they trying to hit you? And there's ways around that as well, where we saw with Luffy versus Eneru, where he just completely shut off his brain and just started, getting around that.
No thoughts, head empty.
Exactly.
Embrace. No thoughts, head empty. Embrace monkey.
And you get to that point, and it's just like, I love the fact that there's benefits and downsides to that kind of stuff as well. And it makes sense within the plot of the way things go. You're able to sense things, or, if something isn't even intended by your attacker, you could end up getting hit because you're relying too much on that sense. And when it comes to the future vision, the thing about the future vision is you have to be in the calmest state of mind imaginable. You cannot be thrown off your game, or you will not be able to use that ability. That was ultimately what Luffy had to learn in order to unlock this. My theory is that with it comes to future vision, it's not so much you're outright seeing the future. It's because you're using all different forms of observation Haki in order to tell things that will happen in the future or have a probability of happening. You're sensing a presence, you're sensing their emotions, and you're sensing their intent. You put all three of those things together, and it gives you a as close to accurate reading of what will probably happen as you possibly can get. And that's why you can still get around Katakuri's future sense. Because if he's just outright able to see the future, that would definitely mean that you could not touch him in any way. But if it's only because he's sensing certain things and getting a probable statistic of what is quite possibly going to happen, there's room for error. Which because of that, Brooke was able to damage the Mother Carmel picture, send Big Mama to her crying fit, yada yada yada. So that's my thoughts on that, and I would love it if that's true, because that makes things a little bit more, it makes it so that it's still very powerful, but it's not unbeatable.
Yeah. I did want to bring up one example. Luffy, Sanji, and Usopp versus Satori. He could sense their intent, and he knew exactly how to dodge them. But at some point, he kind of slipped up because he lost focus, and Luffy was able to hold him in place so that Sanji could deliver the finishing blow.
Right.
Sensing someone's intent doesn't really matter much if you're not able to, or, like I said earlier in the case with Kaido, if you're not able to avoid the attack, or if you're not fast enough to avoid the attack, sometimes it's not really going to matter how much of a future vision you're going to have,
Right. Ooh, another form of it.
Hmm? It kind of just demonstrates your point. Like, it's powerful, but it's not unbeatable.
Right. Oh, another part of it that I forgot to mention was strength sensing. Being able to sense the strength of an opponent. Because we've seen that with certain other characters. It's just like some characters who are able to sense Haki are able to tell, oh, okay, there's a person over there. Others are able to be like, there's a strong person over there. So I feel like that also plays into Katakuri's future sense, and, well, technically Luffy's future sense as well. Because remember when on Zou, he took one look at Inarashi and it's just like, oh, this dude is strong. Nice. Didn't even have to fight him. He immediately knew what was up with Inarashi. And I love that kind of shit. But I love the fact that observation Haki is there, but I also love the fact that it's not entirely infallible.
What do you mean?
I mean, it's something that can, like you said, it can fail if you're not fast enough, if you're not strong enough, if you're not capable enough, or if you just generally lose focus. Hell, even with someone who is untrained in it, with the likes of, well, we've seen it with Isa, or when Kobe unlocked it, he's just getting sensory overload. It's just like, I am detecting way too much emotion going on right now. It is way too much coming in too fast. So, I like the fact that we've seen plenty of downsides to the upsides as well.
You raise a good point. You just, like, these details always kind of slip my mind, because they always come in moments where, like, you're not, like, if you're not paying attention, you'll miss it. More or less. But let's move on to the strawberry of the Neapolitan ice cream.
And technically the first form of Haki we've ever seen.
Yeah.
Alright.
Motherfucking first Haki.
Yes. Lay it on me, big boy. Tell me your thoughts on this one.
I didn't know what to make of it at first. Like, I mean, like I said before, you first see Shanks using it to scare off a Sea King, and you just kind of sit there like, how that worked? And you're not going to get an answer. I know you want one, but you're not going to get one. Fast forward, we don't see Conqueror's Haki for a long time, until I think Amazon, when Luffy he has had enough, and he is just like screaming his fucking lungs out. Do not do. I think they were gonna kill a few of his friends he'd made on the island already by turning them into statues and breaking them, and he just he screamed his lungs out, and next thing you know, everybody with a weak constitution kind of passed the fuck out. He doesn't know what he did. We don't know what he did. But damn if we're not fucking curious. Didn't Kobe also get Conqueror's Haki?
Nope. Never displayed it. He has observation and armament.
Huh.
Yeah, it was... Right. It was when he was... we first got word of how far along his observation had gotten when he showed back up after the time skip for the first time in the manga, where he ended up meeting up with Rebecca because people were trying to kidnap King Riku's daughters and all that good stuff.
Oh, awesome.
And I...
Okay. Well... Well, I was going to go back to my thoughts on Conqueror's Haki.
Yeah, go for it.
So, like, the thing is, when they finally explain Conqueror's Haki, they do it around the same time they're explaining the other two, and it's just like, hey, you happen to have the rarest one, by the way. Like, oh, that's cool. What's it do? And, like, the only thing we get to see it do is just, like, topple over weak motherfuckers. Like, if you don't have a strong will or constitution, you're gonna take a little. I mean, we see it with Shanks and we see it with Whitebeard. Holy shit, we see it with Shanks and we see it with Whitebeard. That was before. Anyway, the point is, we never get an explanation until, like, we find out. Okay. I've lost my train of thought. I just want to gush about how Luffy fucking uses...
Go for it.
50,000 fishmen at Fishman Island. That was fresh off the time skip. I saw that shit and thought, what? Man didn't even lift a finger. He just projected his presence, and 50,000 dudes just collapsed under it. That was what I always thought was cool about Conqueror's Haki. I never saw any other uses for it, though, unfortunately. It's like, wow, that's really cool. It's great for getting rid of small fry.
Yeah.
But, that seems to be all there is to it. I never minded that, though. Realistically, I never minded that. But now that Wano's kind of been like, well, realistically, now that Oda has been teasing at the concept of imbuing Conqueror's Haki into, your strikes like you would with Armament Hockey, I'm just like, first off, my mind is definitely blown. Second, listen, I didn't think it could be done. I realistically didn't think it could be done. I never really put that thread together on that one, but when you think about it, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Now, I do hope these pirates don't start shooting Kamehameha. Like, listen, as hype as that would be, can we not be exact clones of Dragon Ball?
I mean, we're kind of getting to that point, let's be honest.
Yeah, but, like, I don't know. I mean, if there's one thing that they do, it's that when people die, they're dead.
Yeah. We haven't found the mythical One Piece balls yet.
God, I hope not. I really hope not. I will fly my ass out to Japan, have a very lovely time, and then probably kick Eiichiro Oda's ass.
Like, Oda, I love you, but you got a whooping coming, boy. But, I mean, I feel like it was a great... One thing I do have to address, though, before I get into anything else. People love to throw out, well, if Shanks had Haki, how did the Lord of the Coast bite off his arm? Motherfucker, that was 10 goddamn years ago. And he only even became a warlord in universe, what was it, like 5... something around there years ago? Less than a decade. So, Luffy has only recently gotten most of his strongest abilities in terms of Haki. fuck right off. The fucking monster sideswiped him, and he lost an arm. Shit happens. Like, would that happen nowadays? No. But it happened back then? Yes. Get the fuck over it. I'm so tired of that argument. It is the most stupid argument possible. Like, not everybody remains super strong all the time. That's not how that works.
We'll just gotta stop complaining. Anyway, you had more you wanted to say, right? Because like I'm
Yeah. No. Well, I just wanted to talk about the various different levels because it's just like, you had the initial technique dominating the will of another creature. We've seen it with Luffy dominating the Kraken, dominating Motabaro. Luffy just has that innate ability because of Conqueror's Haki. We don't see it all the time in terms of characters dominating the wills of animals every step of the way, but it's the first big indication of someone having Conqueror's Haki, because it's just like, well, it's an animal. They're, let's be honest, not really as smart as most people. Some are, not everyone, but it makes for a good way of being the first step, because you impose your will over a quote-unquote lesser being. The next step is to be able to incapacitate basically fodder, like you said, especially when it came to all those fishmen. It's just like you have an imposing will, and you're essentially sending out a shockwave of your willpower that just completely dominates weaker willed people. We've seen it with Shanks, we've seen it with Whitebeard, we've seen it with Shanks going up against Whitebeard. Specifically, we've seen it with Rayleigh. It's a fun little visual, and it lets you know, oh shit, some shit's about to pop off. And the biggest thing of it is just the pressure. The pressure that emanates from it. It's the thing that we see that causes the sky to split. We've seen it when Shanks clash with Whitebeard. We've seen it with Big Mama's clash against Kaido. It's the pressure of two wills coming into contact with each other, and it just becomes this insane display. But something that kind of took me off guard, I guess you could say, and was the early indication of this being a thing that could happen, is wherever two people with Conqueror's Haki clashed, I always thought it was just a product of their Armament Hockey, where you see two of them clash and sparks would start flying and it'd be really cool. We saw it with Don Qingjiao going up against Luffy. We saw it with Luffy going up against Doflamingo. Sparks were flying all over the place and it was mad awesome cool. And I knew that was Conqueror's Haki. Their armament was clashing, and sparks were flying because they had conquerors. Because we've seen people with Armament Hockey clash before, and we didn't always see sparks fly. And that was always an indication. It's just like, oh, this person has Conqueror's Haki. That's amazing. It never dawned on me that that's the initial signs of what you need to do next. Imbuing that power into something. And it's something that just kind of took me aback when I actually thought about it. Because when you first saw Roger and Whitebeard clashing that one time in the flashback, and you see the sparks flying after they hockeyed up their blades, and it's just like, oh, wait. We see that normally when the weapons or fists touch when you have Conqueror's Haki. Why wouldn't that mean that they're imbuing their weapons with the Conqueror's Haki when you don't even have to touch and the shockwave goes out? like, it feels like it makes so much sense to me to a certain degree that that was the next step. And to, now that we've seen it in action, it's just like, damn, why did I never think that that was a possibility? Because whenever you see the lightning, it's just like, oh, it's conquerors. Like, oh, that's it. The pressure. The two pressures coming into contact with each other. And boom, that's how you get the lightning. They're not even touching. It's the most surreal thing possible. And Oda was really building this up. It's like he thought to himself, okay, whenever we see a hockey clash of conquerors, we get the lightning. What's the next best thing? And when he got to Wano, he finally realized what he needed to do. And we saw it on display with Whitebeard clashing with Roger. They don't even have to touch because of the pressure emanating from their conquerors. And then we finally got it with Luffy. It's the final form of what he needs to do with his conquerors Haki. And the sad thing is, I don't know if there's any further he can really go with any of this. Maybe there might be a next step, but like you said, this is as close as you can get to, having it be its own thing before you start getting into them shooting around beams and shit.
Yeah, honestly, I don't think Luffy needs any more. Realistically, knowing him, he'll find a way to incorporate all those Conqueror's Haki type hits into his fourth gear form, which may land us in fifth gear. May is the key word.
See, that's something that's always been on my mind because with the nature of this new technique, does he necessarily need Gear 4?
I mean, listen, if he incorporates that stuff into Gear 4, it might be just the absolute game-changingest kind of thing possible. And we might even see him do it, I don't know, against, if not against Shanks, then against Blackbeard. And if not against him, then probably against Eam. Actually, no. We might see him use it against all three of them.
Hey, it's a possibility. But yeah, that's essentially been my thoughts on things. It's just like yeah, I mean, if he does incorporate it, it could be very powerful, but it's hard for me to imagine what added bonus you kind of get from that. But at the same time, I guess it does really make sense depending on how things work. I mean, I guess I've just gotten so used to so many of his Gear 4th strikes being stuff that essentially boils down to how can I hit them as fast as possible, as hard as possible. Gear 4th.
I mean,
oh, no, go ahead.
Realistically, like, that is more or less his whole deal. And with Conqueror's Haki imbued into his fist when he's, going for it, that might do way more damage than you might think. Like, that shit might be just overpowered as fuck, realistically speaking. Luffy is basically, in recent years, Luffy has been starting to take on kaiju-sized fucking monsters. Jesus Christ, can you imagine, like, they go to Elbaf, and Elbaf has Godzilla or something?
Godzilla!
It's like, bruh, that's a radioactive dinosaur. I'm gonna fight it. I'm gonna do what Kong couldn't. Represent the monkey.
The true monkey has arrived.
Anything else you want to say
Eh,
on the subject?
I mean, I guess my only hang up is like when you can send out a blast of your own willpower and it can hit from a distance, what need do you have of stretchy powers?
Uh, Well, I don't think he's going to be able to blast his willpower like a beam.
I don't know. I guess I need
Like,
to see him stretch and use the Conqueror's Force Blast whatchamajigger.
yeah, I can understand that. I mean, hey, it might actually be something really fucking cool.
Yeah, one can only hope.
I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it. Like, Oda has not been disappointing. Like, we'll probably look back on this one day and just be like, bruh, how little we knew. How little we knew.
It's just like, always have faith in Oda. Never doubt the man. Never doubt the man.
Never doubt Goda.
Oh, man. But yeah, that's about it. Anything else you wanted to add?
Nah, I'm good.
And alright, with that, that brings another close to yet another episode of Talking 2D. I want to thank our audience so much for listening. Thank you so much. We do this because...
Thanks for listening.
Yeah. We do this because we love to do it. Fuck all of you. But no.
If you don't like it, come to my house for an ass beating.
Come at me, scrub, I'm ripped.
Exactly.
But no, seriously, I hope you enjoyed our discussion. I hope we might have swayed you to watch certain things you might have not thought to watch before, or might have even give you encouragement to go back to something that you thought you weren't interested in anymore. Whichever the case, let us know in the comment section below. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and we will see you next time. This is Duuz-Diz-Din, and...
The man with the iron giblets.
signing off. Bye-bye.
Peace.